Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining today. Today's Bringing Museums to the Home digital workshop session. So I can't believe that I think we're over sort of halfway into the workshop programme. And I'm sure you'll agree that I think Alan and Catherine have been doing a fantastic job in facilitating the workshops. And it's been great just to get the contributions as well from some of our panel members. We've had Kay from the museum in Barbados, and Kay has shared some brilliant examples just in relation to community engagement and looking at the use of digital within the museum. And we've also had contributions from Scotta in Iceland, and from Jackie from Timespan in Helmsdale, and from Mari from Tycursova, Outer Hebrides. So thank you everyone just for your contributions and your insights into the use of digital within the heritage sector. So just very quickly, just for those that have joined the workshop programme for the first time today, my name's Anne-Marie Reid. I work for Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and I currently oversee HI's involvement in the CUPIDO Interreg North Sea Region Cultural Heritage Project. So CUPIDO, it stands for Culture Power to Inspire Development in Rural Areas. And it's through CUPIDO that HI has been able to collaborate with the University of St Andrews to develop and deliver a programme of digital heritage related activities across the Highlands and Islands region. And it's also through CUPIDO that we've been able just to draw on the skills and expertise of Alan and Catherine just on the area of digital heritage, and to develop and facilitate this programme of workshops. And it's also sort of through CUPIDO that we've been able to collaborate with XpoNorth Heritage, who I think have been doing a brilliant job in providing the tech support to be able to deliver the online workshops, and have also just been actively promoting the workshops amongst their networks as well. So just moving on to today's session, which is session 5, and it's looking at going live with social media. So with social media, it's now possible to do our own do-it-yourself live broadcasting, whether that be walking around a site, a guided tour of a digital reconstruction, or a panel discussion. The opportunity for the audience to engage and direct can transform the experience. So today's session is going to look at how to successfully broadcast live to Facebook from a phone or webcam. So the first part of the session is titled Go Live, and it's looking at DIY webinars and broadcasts. And that will then be followed by a roundtable sort of discussion amongst the panel and the audience, just to share your experience on today's topic. So thank you everybody for joining, and I hope you enjoy today's workshop. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's good to see people here again. And today we're going to be talking about what I think is a really exciting topic, which is going live, how to do live broadcast and communication. And I think to motivate that, I think Catherine's got some things to say about why go live.
Oh, just off the bat, okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, didn't even start the PowerPoint yet. Okay, well, if we go to the next slide, which we're all seeing kind of the evidence of it here. Into the next slide, thank you. That is that it's having live streams, but also with live engagement and audiences is great for collaborating with others and other users that are on the platform that you're live streaming on. You can fundraise on it, you can tour at a location, do a virtual tour, or go show through an event. You can do live question and answers, host tutorials or workshops, sort of like these. Conduct interviews, or you can do some reviews of exhibitions or something that you've used. So I think they're very powerful. I think they are incredibly important for this time of what's happening in the world right now. It's a good way to connect and keep connected as well. So yes, why go live? It's important.
Yeah, I think that that's true, but I mean, it's also true, if we kind of skip forward a couple of slides, it's also true that things live have been really important and groundbreaking events. So, for example, the slide that you're about to see, it's a fairly kind of black and white, grey issue, but this, I don't know if anybody knows actually, but this was the first image, pretty much the first image that was done on TV, transatlantic between the UK and the United States. And you know, it was big news that we could now talk to the United States across the Atlantic Ocean, and we could do it live. And you know, it's covered in all the newspapers, obviously on the BBC, and you know, there was talk. It was really the first time people were talking about there being a shrinking globe and a global village and the like. So, and you can see the next picture is the TV studio where they were working on it. Yeah, that's great. And then the next example is the moon landing. It was a fairly major thing for my life, but I remember well staying up and watching the people landing on the moon in 1972, and that was live. But you know, in general, live events are, you know, in some senses the sort of peak of experiences. So, and a staggering combined 3.572 billion viewers watched the World Cup live in 1918. So that's almost half of the world, half of the world's population. And in fact, but it's not just real world events like landing on the moon, but also virtual events like computer games where people are playing against each other live. That's a major driver for them. And in the last year or so, we have really begun to see events taking place. We've really begun to see events taking place on social media. So, for example, the Barbados Museum and Historical Society has done loads of live events. There seems to be a couple of slides lag between where I am and that's it. Okay, so we're down to one slide lag. And wildlife. I don't know if anybody's been watching Speyside Wildlife. They have somebody going out with their phone recording birdsong pretty much every morning and in the evenings as well, and people have been tuning in, including myself, and listening to them. So I think it's a great example, and really simple. It's just like somebody going for a walk with their phone, photographing and recording, and beaming it back home, and getting people to come in. And then there's stuff that we've done ourselves in Heritage at Home, Edinburgh 1544. So that has been a big sort of online event with, I was going to say hundreds of people, but not hundreds of people, but close to 100 people tuning in to it live, but having a reach of 34,000. And I think that what we found is that live events provide a nice focus for activity. They, you know, by having them periodically, you have a build up to them, information gets distributed. So there's a nice sort of run up, and then there's the event, and then there's what happens after the event, because the materials that are created and recorded during the live event are then available for people afterwards. And that's one of the things that we're hoping is that by doing these workshops, we will create a set of resources and a set of materials which will be of use in the future. So in terms of what happens before, and I focus a bit on Facebook because in some ways it's the most commonly used. But in terms of what happens before, key to that really is the idea of creating a Facebook event. And so you can create a Facebook event pretty straightforwardly. What you need to do is you need to go to, you need to go on to the next slide. You need to go to Heritage at Home, Lords of the Isles, and you need to create an event in the first place. Creating an event is quite easy. There's just a create event button, and when you press the create event button, you then get a dialog box up which looks like this. And the dialog box, you have opportunity, for example, to put in a photograph, or to put in a video of it, and also to add a name and essentially fill in the form. Some of the information here is quite interesting and is quite important. So the co-hosts thing here, what that means is that more than one page can sponsor a event. So, for example, these events are being sponsored by the Open Virtual Worlds group. They're set up by XpoNorth, who kindly then invite us to co-host, and also invite Highlands and Islands Enterprise to co-host. And this means that all of the information is distributed across those different web pages. So that is absolutely great. And then there's a number of things that you can do with the event in order to promote it. So, for example, here there's this session, and what I just took a screenshot of what I was doing here was I was sharing this into pages that I thought might be interested, and into groups that I thought might be interested, in order to publicize the event. And interestingly, within 5 minutes of me posting that, a couple of people had signed up for it. So there's a potential to do that. There's a potential to do that. And then what else can we do on the events? So this is an example of we can pin the event to the top of the page, so that everybody who comes to see it see your page, sees the post, and also we can host it. As I mentioned before, we can do multiple hostings. So that's an example from a Finlagan event that we held about the Lord of the Isles, and Open Virtual Worlds, Armadale Castle, University of St Andrews, and Finlagan Trust all co-hosted it, and that helped build kind of a momentum towards it. So it's worth looking at this co-hosting. But when you make an event, that doesn't in and of itself create anything that goes live. It just creates a structure which is easy to share and easy to publicize, so it can get things out there amongst people. Going live is slightly separate, so we need to think about how these two things are connected together. But the first and the most obvious and easiest thing to do with going live is to do it with a webcam. So you just quite simply, I mean, if you've got a laptop, there's probably a webcam in there. If not, you need to get a webcam from somewhere. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I created a page username. So when you have a page, it has some very strange sequences of numbers in the address for that page. So it's like Facebook, and then these series of numbers. And the thing is that if you go into the page settings, you can create a username. And here we've got a username. I've created a username called Open Virtual Worlds, and that means that when an address is made, both for your live things and for your events, it uses the word Open Virtual Worlds rather than this long sequence of numbers. So it's well worthwhile doing that if you're wanting people to be able to find the events and the live things that you have. But so once you've done that, just at the top of the page, there's a Go Live button. If you press the Go Live button, you'll get a screen that looks something like this. And so there, hopefully you will have something better to look at in your Go Live, in your live event when it comes to it. But so this is at the top of the screen, and it shows you the image that would be going to go live, and it gives you the opportunity to share this to different ways. So you can share to a page, or you can share to a group, usually, or you can share to an event. So the problem with sharing to an event is that it only people who've signed up for the event will see it. So if you share it to a page, to your page, if there's a lot of people on the page, then they're likely to get notifications if they're following when you go live. So often it's better to share it to a page. Then looking down here, we see there are some configuration options. So the first configuration option is you can choose your camera, and you can choose the microphone that you want to use, and then you can also decide whether this event is going to be a camera event or a screen share event. So I don't think you can change while you're in the middle, but you can certainly do a screen sharing thing with audio over the top of it, or a video thing, and then you just click on you just set it up. And I think in the next slide you can see so on that slide you can see that it is now live, and then flipping over to the Facebook page you can see the live event, and then when you close it, you got your live video has ended, and you can rate yourself, or rather rate the quality of the broadcast, and then afterwards, now you've got a live video, you can then use watch parties to try and get more people to look at it and to view it. So you can see what I've done is I've right clicked on the 3 dots at the top of the post, and that has given me start a watch party. So I start the watch party, and once I start the watch party, I get a screen which lets me choose to add a whole bunch of videos to the watch party, and then we can get it up and we're going with the watch party. So that is that is great. So we've got our event, followed by the event we do our event to build up momentum and let people know about the event, let people know about the live event that's coming up. Then we have the going live itself, and then we have the follow-up where we have the video, which we can show in a watch party, and we can also edit it and cut it up and do different things to it if we want to do that. The one thing that I've missed out is that if you do get it hosted with lots of people, the event, you need to make sure at the start of the live thing that live stream gets shared to all of the places. Otherwise, people may have difficulty in finding it. So that's kind of the software mechanisms for doing a live event and how you would set it up. But I think it's also worthwhile thinking about how can this be made successful. So, and here I'm assuming that, really what we need to do is to apply our curatorial and narrative skills that we would have in the real world, using the real world, apply them inside of the digital domain. So I think we should all feel quite empowered that we're capable of planning and deciding what it is we want to be communicating and how we want to be communicated, how we want it to communicate, it. But there's the issue to do with setup and equipment. So I think the first thing to say is that it's really, if you're running an event yourself, and this is with a live cam in front and a computer, it's good to have the right sort of setup, and it's good to have the right sort of camera. So, so first of all, don't have lots of light behind you. At the start of lockdown, I started doing a lot of video conferencing. I had a lot of light behind me. No one could see me or my face or any of those sort of things, at all. It just looked as though, I think Catherine said, looked as though I was in a dark cave. So you want the light to be in front of you. I'm looking out over the garden, which is nice, except sometimes the sun comes in my eyes, so I really should have a blind in front of me. Think about your background. You want it to be like neat and tidy, and probably not the way I've got my background, but never mind. Think about the internet connection that you have. It's good to have as good a connection as you can have, but it's also good to be able to plug in. It's good to be able to, if we go back up one maybe, it's good to be able to plug into the that's it. It's good to be able to plug into the internet supply that you have. So what I've done is, for £10, bought a 25-meter cable of Cat6 and plugged that into a IP over electricity, so you can get these kits. There's one illustrated there, and you can click on it to go through, and so that will connect me directly to the outside line via the electricity cables. But if I'm in the same room as my access point, then I can connect indirectly to it. So it's a good idea to do that. It's a good idea to have as solid a internet connection as you possibly can. You know, when doing the live event, try to close down as much possible on your computer, so that, or on your phone, so that you only have what you're actually going to be using during the event active. It's worthwhile thinking about, do I get a webcam? Do I get a microphone? I think it's probably a good idea to do so. I'm showing some examples here. They're not necessarily the best examples, but they're certainly ones that are well spoken of, and that we've used and found to be good. And then lighting. I think lighting can be important. If you look at the next two slides, the first one is unlit, and the next one is lit. To be honest, there's not that much difference between the two of them, but there certainly can be. I mean, that's because I'm in quite a light scenario. I didn't go and hide myself in a dark cavern, but I think it's worthwhile having lighting. And the traditional, or the best thing to do, is to have one light directly in front of you, one light to your right or to your left, which is a bit dimmer, and then another light behind. And that combination of three lights is kind of the best sort of lighting that you can get. And I put up there a link to a bulb, which you can put into a normal bulb, and that will provide quite nice light, and costs £5. I've also put up a kind of studio video light, which is quite big and quite sturdy. That's more expensive. It's about £70, but you could probably get one like it for half of that price. So yeah, so I think that sort of equipment is worth thinking about. And I've also put in there you can get a HDMI splitter, so you can have multiple HDMI sources, i.e. multiple video sources coming in, and if you put that into a video capture card, then that can look like a video camera to your computer, and that means that you can then switch between various external physical sources while you're doing the live cam thing. But I mean, that may be a step or two ahead of where we want to be at the moment. So I hope that really kind of gives us a series of steps, and I hope that you would feel, you know, if you haven't done a live event yourselves before, that by the end of this seminar you'd feel confident enough to kind of give it a go. So, but I think this point I'd like to hand over to Catherine, who's going to switch context a bit from Facebook and webcams into Instagram and doing it all with your phone.
Oh, well, we're still going to talk about Facebook a little bit. And actually, Ian, if you want to jump ahead to that slide, so past the Instagram ones, and then there's one about Facebook. Yeah, because I'll just kind of piggyback on what has just been said about setting up a live event for or within Facebook, but this would be doing it through the app. And then I'll go back to Instagram, since that's a totally different platform. So with pretty much the same thing, but through the mobile app, you're able to do a live stream as well. So you can find that under, when you open up your news feed, and at the very top it says what's on your mind, like you were about to do a post, there's a button that says live. So you can click that and immediately goes in to, you're not live yet, so you have time to prepare. But you can add a description, you can start adding specific people that you want to join as well. They give you the option to fundraise while you're also on the live stream. So if you were doing kind of fundraising for yourself or a charity or something like that, you can have that incorporated in your live stream. And because it's your mobile app and Facebook and Instagram do these, you can have a filter, or you can have a mask actually on Instagram or on Facebook, so you can cover your face if you want. Everything's, once you finish the live stream, everything's automatically updated or uploaded to your profile or page that you were streaming from. So there's nothing that you have to do. It just comes up just like a normal video that then you can share on its own and still get any, or like any other post, and you can still gather the analytics like you would any other post as well. So it's just another way to create content. So now if we go back in to the beginning of the Instagram, now I'll go through just quickly the Instagram platform on how to do that, which is very similar, but you have to do a little bit of tweaking. So obviously this was somewhere else in the PowerPoint, but what's good with Instagram is that it does, and with anything on a mobile phone, it lets you do it without having a setup. Alan's been talking about having kind of like a studio setup and having your webcam and having preparation for it. This one you may not have as much preparation, or you're doing it on the go. So you're going to be using your audio or your mic from your phone, and it's going to be outside or inside, or there's lots of different kind of environmental factors that could happen, but that's what's interesting. You could also set it up like a studio, no problem, also with your phone. But it's just a great way to collaborate. And I've said these before, fundraise, do Q&As and do interviews. So with Instagram, it's a really good idea to, and the same thing with Facebook, is that if you're going to do something and you want people to come to it, you need to advertise when it's going to happen and what's it about. And that's pretty standard with anything else, but just making sure you do that within the platform that you're going to be live streaming from. So if you're going to be doing it from Facebook, do a post about it in Facebook. If you're going to be doing it from Instagram, do a post about it or a story about it in Instagram. So next slide. Then just telling you how to do it on Instagram a little bit. So how you access it would be, you're on your news feed for Instagram and you swipe right, or you go up, like you're going to add a story and you hold it and you say add a story to my feed or whatever it is, and you just kind of scroll to the live option, and there's a live option and there's a button and you tap that to start. You don't start it right away either. It's just to go there and to set yourself up. You can do the same thing. You add a title. You can allow contents. You can switch that on and off if you want, or have it just for your friends that are on your account to comment. You can also fundraise as well in that, in Instagram as well. And then when you kick it off and you start, anybody who's a friend of your account will get a notification that you're starting a live event if they have notifications on for Instagram. So it is kind of an instantaneous, hey, this person's on live right now, go see it. And there's a bit of urgency with it. So next slide, please, thanks. So while you're in the live stream, you can flip the camera. So if you need to change it to the back facing camera to look out on whatever you're doing, you can, and you can flip it back to the front facing camera. You can also use a filter. You can also invite a guest to come in on the live stream with you. So that's really great if you want to do an interview, or you collaborating with somebody, have like kind of a hosted panel or question-and-answer session. And you can also send the video as it's going to a user. So if you notice somebody's not on your live stream and you want them to, you can send it to them while you're on there. You can also kick somebody out, which is always great. And you can hide the story if you wanted to from our user, or only have it sent to your designated list, which is your close friends list, and that you've made up on your own. So next slide. So after it, you can do a few things with it. So it doesn't have an automatic save, so you have to watch that. So the first thing that you would do is that when you end it, you would take a screenshot of when it's ended. It says it's ended, and it says how many people you had in your stream. I think that's a really important thing to keep, and that's not always, those metric numbers aren't always kept, so just screenshot it and save it for yourself. But you have the option at that point to save it to your phone's gallery, or you can send it to something called IGTV, Instagram TV, which is just for longer format videos than what a post would be. And then from there, you can share it and have it on your story, but none of the original likes or comments are seen. So if you want to have that original, you got to save it. Yes, and take a screenshot. Perfect. Yep. All right, next slide. And then that was Facebook. Okay, great. So it's pretty simple and straightforward, but I think we can talk about it later if anybody has any questions on it. But it's a great platform to be able to use your phone then. If you're out and about, or if something's happening right away and you want to just live stream it, that's the platform, or both are platforms, but that's the method to doing it. So back to you, Alan.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. That, yeah, it's interesting to hear that, and I mean, it's a lot of information that's flowing around here. But I think that, you know, it's all like individual steps. So there's really nothing here that is particularly, you know, difficult. And I think maybe the thing to keep sight of is the sort of message, or what you're going to want to be using this for, and how you're going to be using it. You know, because the mobile phone thing is great, because it means that you could, you know, quite easily be walking around a museum or walking around a garden, I don't know, giving a virtual tour of this, and then it pops up on your Facebook feed, and you have people watching it, you know, in real time. And at the same time as that, there are so many people who know so much about these about the heritage and the places, and often they, you know, it gets communicated through you know, through guided tours that happen all of the time and hundreds of times. But often it's that step of actually recording the guided tour. Recording the guided tour is one that can be quite a hard one to do. And I think that this process of doing a live tour can also be a process of recording the sort of guided tours. And I think that there's a lot of those that could come out and would benefit from it. But also the second kind of way that we can use a virtual live events is to do with kind of seminars or workshops. So, you know, how to host a webinar, or what's involved in hosting a webinar. And again, I think that it's very similar. You know, 90% of the skills or 80% of the skills are the same skills that you would have in holding a meeting. And I think it's, you know, it's remarkable really, with the lockdown and so on, how many people were able to transition quite quickly from participating in meetings at work to participating in meetings online. And often people thought, oh, you know, this technology stuff, it's not for me, but then find themselves in this scenario and are actually able to work pretty well on it. And I think that it's similar from a hosting from participation to hosting. A lot of the skills are transferable ones. There are a lot of platforms, and I think that most of us find that we have to use different platforms in different circumstances. Zoom, there are issues with Zoom. Some organizations won't let you near it, and so if you're wanting to have a conference which involves one of those organizations, then it's going to be a bit problematic hosting it on Zoom. But particularly things like local councils and civil service and the like. But for most people, I think that Zoom is a kind of intuitive and easy to use option. Last week, people talked about different options that exist. I'm just going to mention two others here. One is Microsoft Teams, which is, I take the view that it's good. Microsoft Teams is good, and it's particularly good within an organization. If you're wanting to have an open meeting, I mean, one of the great things about Zoom is you can get a URL and put it in an email and send it to a bunch of people, and they can use it to log in. So the accessibility is there. Microsoft Teams is pretty accessible and pretty good as well, but it's really hot when it's intra-organization, when it's inside an organization that's got it. And then, I don't know, I mean, I used to use Skype. That used to be the one. It seems to be fading into the background, but I think it's still useful, particularly for one-to-one or small numbers of people. So then if we look at Zoom itself, these are the different plans that are available. So there's a free plan, which is pretty good. You can sign up for it. It's free. The main limitation is that it only goes for 40 minutes. So if you're wanting to have a meeting with longer than 40 minutes, you can do one or two things. You can, when you get to the end of the 40 minutes, you can just essentially flip it so that it just continues on, or you can upgrade. So you can upgrade for your £11.99 a month. And for this, you get your 100 viewers, you get unlimited number of minutes, you get your one room, and you can hold meetings. And we've been, that's what the one that we're on, and we've been doing that quite reasonably successfully. If you want more resources, you can get more resources. So you can get more rooms, and you need to pay, but you're paying £30 or something like that. So if you're wanting to, like, you know, have a conference 1 month, then maybe you upgrade your Zoom and put in all of these things. The next tier up, and James, you may want to butt in here if I'm giving out false information, or if you can add a nuance to it. But the next tier up is the business tier, and that's £15.99. That looks like a good deal, but you have to have 10 hosts in order to get it, I believe, which means that you need, it's £159 a month, which is quite a lot. I think you can do it just for the 1 month. So maybe if you're having a big conference or a big event, you do that, and then you go back down to a month. So, and so the next slide shows a Zoom conference in full swing. So we have two modes that we can choose from. So this is a kind of open mode. So if we go into the open mode, then everybody can see each other, and we can like have quite a natural, free-flowing conversation, I think. And then the other option that we have is the one that we've been using, which is to do a screen share. And when you do the screen share, you can choose between lots of different windows, or you can actually choose a screen. And here I've chosen screen 2, and then anything that I put onto that screen will come out, will be broadcast. And there's two options at the bottom: share computer sound. So you need to decide whether you want to do that or not. If you don't do that, when you kind of press your, oh, here's a song I want you all to listen to, you press it, and you can enjoy listening to it, but nobody else will be able to. And there's the optimized screen sharing for video clip. And what that will do is it will reduce the resolution and increase the frame rate, because with a PowerPoint, the frame isn't changing very often. So you'll lose some resolution, but you'll get a better frame rate for the video. So that's the two kind of modes that you need to choose for. And there's a whole art that can be taken on top of it. But I think the next thing that's kind of the next step up from this, and the thing that we're doing here is, if we just skip that slide in, is, yeah, we can connect to Facebook. And it's quite straightforward. You just need to go into the settings and activate it. And then when you've done that, when you're in the stream, you just need to click on more, click on Facebook, and bang, you're in there. It's really as simple as that, just knowing which things you need to click, and then you're going straight through. So I'm sorry, I've spoken for longer than I intended to do there. So I think that Eventbrite is really interesting. Eventbrite is how you've all kind of got in here, and Eventbrite lets us advertise events outside of the specific platform that we're using, and so it can connect in with wider audiences and bring people in. And I think Ian's going to talk a bit about open broadcaster software. So we've got open broadcaster software. Ian, can you hear me? Maybe you're
yes, sorry, I forgot to unmute myself there. So open broadcaster software lets you broadcast and record live video. You can capture various types of video from various different sources, and also include images and text and stuff, and composite them together. And then stream it out in various different ways. So in order to use it, you first have to go and install it. You first have to go and download it from its website. So it's OBS Studio, and it's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And so after you download it, you install it. It's just the pretty normal install process that you would go through. And then you start it up. And when it first starts up, you've got one scene that's got nothing in it. So what we're going to describe is showing some media in a web browser, and also showing your own face on top of it so that people can see you. So first you would click on the plus button, go to video, go to window capture, add the window you want. In this case, I'm showing a window that contains this current slideshow. And then you go to video plus button again, do video capture, and then put it in, and then resized it to be small in the corner, because usually you want a little bit of view and a lot of the media is showing. And then after that, you would go to Facebook, assuming you're streaming on Facebook. Click on the live button, which is on the page. This brings up things similar to what Alan showed before. But instead of clicking use camera, use stream key. And then there's a stream key that will be here. I've blurred it out so you can actually see our stream key, because then you'll be able to stream us. But you press the copy button, that copies in. And then in OBS, you go up to the settings menu. You go up to the file menu, go settings, go to stream, and then select Facebook Live. You might have to go into the more things to actually select Facebook Live, and then paste the stream key that you just copied into there and use the default server. And then you should be ready to go live. Depending on what you want to send out, if you want to send out your desktop audio, so the audio that's coming from the media, you want to unmute that. And if people want to hear their voice, which presumably you do if you're putting your face over, you'd also want to make sure that that's unmuted. And then you've got volume bars to see how loud it is, and you can adjust the volume and stuff. And then you would then press the start streaming button, and that makes you live. And so this is what it would look like on Facebook. And then you're live on Facebook. And once you've checked that that's working properly, you just press the button, the go live button, and then it's out on Facebook.
Yeah, keep going. I think so. This next bit that you're about to talk to is connecting together Facebook, Zoom, and OBS in a way that enables you to have quite a lot of control over what is being presented on the stream and what is happening in the conference.
Yes. So if you put out the stream to Facebook, if you stream media directly from OBS to Facebook, people on Zoom call could see that, but the delay is still so long that they wouldn't be able to live comment on it. So there are various ways to get around it, but the way that we prefer is use a thing called OBS Virtual Cam, which you can download from the web addresses up there. And then you download that, go through the install process, which is again pretty normal. But at the end, it asks how many virtual cameras you want. So you would go with one, or at least we need one for this setup. You could go for more if you want to. And then once you open OBS again, in the tools menu, there's virtual cam. You can press start. You can make auto start if you want. And that'll feed it into Zoom. So if you're going to use a more complicated setup for this, you probably want to switch into studio mode. This is the same setup as before, but with studio mode on. With one scene, it's not much advantage because it's just the same as before. But yeah, once you create multiple scenes, you can jump between them and fade in. So in Zoom, you'd want to change it. So instead of using a real webcam, you want to use the OBS camera. And that once OBS virtual cam is playing, the video stream will appear in there. So here we are with multiple scenes set up. This one's Zoom, and this one's a stream waiting thing, which we put up at the beginning, so that you can start stream up, make sure it's all running, and then fade into the stream you want. And here is a screenshot of Zoom, where the virtual cam is feeding in. So what happens is that the user that's doing this setup, they're, instead of having a normal webcam output, they just get the stream, and that way the other participants in the stream can see it in close to real time. So the delay is the same kind of delay as you would just get on Zoom normally, which allows normal interaction. And so here we set up more scenes. This one's the starting soon. Sorry, the one on the right is the starting soon. The one on the left is a scene which has got similar to before. It's got the browser, but instead of taking in from the webcam, it's taking in it's actually the Zoom window shrunk down with the top cropped off, so that you only see the speaking person. And here's another example where on the right is, sorry, on the left is a view of something else, of a virtual environment behind the Zoom thing. So you can capture from many types of windows. And so similarly to before, you'd set up the key and stuff, set up the key in Facebook and go live, and then yeah, you start streaming the same as before, and the people in the conference are seeing video from thing. When you go live, obviously you have to be careful to make sure that you unmute your audio after you're ready for people to be heard. And here we are with a more complicated setup. Well, this is me because I was recording on my own, but yeah, that's using a separate laptop, so that would normally be a separate person, separate from me. But there you go.
So that's great, Ian. And I think that the thing there is that what we're trying to do with that, with the final setup that you talked about, is to be able to, for example, have somebody exploring a digital reconstruction and have that appearing in the Zoom conference and have it appearing in the Facebook stream and appearing at a good level of detail and also with good frame rates. And that setup we've tested and we used it in the Finlagan conference, the Finlagan broadcast that we did, and that, you know, it worked very well. You got good frame rates and you're able to explore the digital reconstruction and at the same time have a commentary from some of the experts there. So that's really quite exciting to be able to do that sort of thing. But I mean, really what we've done today is we looked at kind of like maybe 5 or 6 different ways of going live, and I think that this is something that has a lot of scope for monetization, which was something which we questioned, which we talked about last Tuesday. And also there's, just to say that there's, what you can do is you can relay to YouTube, Twitch and Twitter. You can buy these relays, so you can essentially connect up that way, or you can try and do it yourself. But we haven't really got time to talk about that in detail. And what I'd really like to do is just to get some comments maybe from Kay about, or some, because we've kind of like gone through some of the steps in order to go live. But I think the Barbados Museum has some great examples of how live broadcast has been used, and they've been doing it for some time now as well.
Hello, everyone. We have in fact been doing live stream for like maybe the last 2 or 3 years. We started with our annual lecture series, which usually runs from March until about May every year, give or take a couple of weeks shifting either way. And it usually immediately after work on a weekday evening. So we had lots and lots of people complaining, we would love to come to this lecture series, but it's really just not convenient. Could you find a way to record this, a way for us to watch it later on? We had lots of overseas visitors who kept saying, you know, we're in England and the UK, we're in America, we're in Canada, but we would love to see these. So we actually started out just as a kind of a test with one of our history groups. We've got an informal history group as well, where anybody who is passing through, who is doing some historical research, and they want to share a little bit of what they're researching about is a little more informal. So we tested it first on one of our history groups with actually my personal phone. We just did Facebook. We went live from the museum's page. I'm an administrator on the museum's page, so I just basically went on the museum's page and I did live. We had a few teething problems, first and foremost of which is that people kept calling my phone while we were running the initial one, but it was actually hugely successful. We didn't get very many people logging on during the actual session. Number one, we didn't really advertise we were going to go live in case something went horribly wrong, because we really hadn't a clue what we were doing at first. But then afterwards, we got tons and tons of views. People shared it. People said, oh, what a wonderful thing the museum is now doing. And all of a sudden, we felt obligated to do it for pretty much every public event we've had. So since then, we've done our annual lecture series, which is our sort of like flagship online event. That's every week on the same evening for 2 to 3 months, depending on the topic and the amount of lecturers. And we actually have a theater facility built on our premises. So we usually set that up in the theater. We're still using phones, but we're no longer using mine. We bought a dedicated mobile for using Facebook Live. And we also downloaded some software onto one of our laptops so that we could have a bit more control. And then this year, we actually got a bit of sponsorship from the government, which allowed us to do multiple cameras. And we've actually gotten pretty fancy lately. So this year, we've actually had somebody external handling that for us. Interesting side note, with COVID this year, we were about just under halfway through our lecture series when we shut Barbados down. We initially attempted to do a Zoom setup where we conferenced in the lecturer, the chairperson, and the people who would ordinarily have been organizing the lecture with the intention of putting it out via Facebook Live, which is our usual format. And what happened was that the internet at the lecturer's house was not sufficient quality to enable proper audio. We got a great video feed, but the audio was just total crap. So we actually had to do a bit of a hiatus for a couple weeks. And what we've been doing since we've started back is we have everybody, just the 3 or 4 of us, gather in the museum and we run it from there, because the museum has high-speed internet, so we can guarantee the internet feed. So we just basically bring everybody in with the cameras, we record it, and then our setup is we do allow people to ask questions, but we usually have a dedicated person monitoring the laptop, and that person puts the questions from the online speaker to the chairperson, so that both the in-studio audience and the online audience can hear the question before it's answered. But that's basically it. And we thought initially that our audience numbers for in-person attendance would drop significantly when we started doing live. That has not been the case. So we've discovered that it's actually kind of two separate audiences. The only, I would say, add on to that coming out of COVID is that since we've been forced to shut the country down, the size of the online live audience has increased quite significantly. So like before, we would have maybe 100 people in the audience. We'd have maybe between 10 and 30 people connected online, depending on how interesting the topic was or how well known the speaker was. And then we would get the majority of our online views after the event. And that would basically be, we've had ranging from about 400 people to maybe 1,000 people, again, depending on the lecture for the big lecture series, and maybe like 100 people to like 300 people for the little history groups. Coming into COVID now, when we did our very first online lecture, despite almost zero advertising because we were still trying to work through teething problems when we got it up and going. So we had like maybe 48 hours notice to our audience that yes, the lecture was going on and this is when it was going to be and so on. We actually had an online audience that was 50 or 60 people at the time, which was quite unusual for us. And then by 10 p.m. the lecture actually aired around 2 in the afternoon, just to give you an idea of the length of time. 10 p.m. that night, we were almost at 1,000 views, which again, it usually takes us maybe a couple weeks to a month to get up to 900 people. So COVID has had a very significant impact on the size and composition, I suspect, of our online audience.
That's fascinating. It's interesting to hear the experience over time, and also that I mean you mentioned in the video, it was something that I meant to talk about a little bit in the thing, and most of the screens that we use are 1920 by 1080, and most of the media is what's called high definition media. But Facebook, when it's doing its live streaming, it won't go above 720p, which is about 13K across. So, and also there's quite a lot of research which says that, in terms of the experience that people have, the quality of audio is so much more important than the quality of video. So I wouldn't go chasing high resolution video for these sorts of things, either in terms of cameras or setup or anything like that. I think 1300 is across, which is less than HD, is perfectly good. And again, in another context, we did a bunch of experiments and found that people really couldn't tell the difference. They really could. We asked them to rank some scenes which were at different levels of resolution, and between 13 and 1920 to 1920, 720p and 1080p, people couldn't tell you which one they were looking at. And so I wouldn't worry too much. The first thing I think should be the resolution.
Right. What we've done too, our lectures have always been, we have a partnership with the University of the West Indies. So they usually record our lectures. They didn't stream for us. They just recorded them and gave us an edited one later on. They're still doing that. And what we usually do, what we've been doing, I should say, especially since COVID, is we've been putting copies of some of the past lectures up on our YouTube channel. And again, it's generating additional traffic on our YouTube, but that's not an automatic thing. And that's not like a within 24 hours thing. We usually wait for the edited package, and that's what we put on our YouTube.
Yeah. We have plans to do that, don't we, James?
Yes, we do, yeah. The great thing with streaming it straight out to Facebook, though, is that we've noticed that in the time it would take for us as an organization to take this content, pull it down from Zoom, package it up, re-upload it, and then relink it out, we've already skipped those steps by having it streamed straight onto Facebook straight away. And that provides an on-the-roll archive that people can go back to and reference straight away. we will pop this up onto YouTube, but it takes the immediacy off getting that done by having it immediately put onto our Facebook account. So it's very versatile in how quick the content can be put available for people to view, and that means that it won't necessarily perish as quickly. It will still remain a bit more relevant.
I have a question for Alan. When you were going through the different types of meeting software, you spoke about Skype and Microsoft Teams and so on. What are your thoughts actually on Google Meet? I'm asking because that's actually growing quite significantly in popularity in Barbados. And that's like #2 behind Zoom here.
I'm sure that it's great. I was just biased in terms of what I've used in my own kind of experience, and also I noticed that Facebook have rooms as well now. But yeah, probably a mission on my part not having it on the list.
It's actually very, very similar to Zoom. Almost all the same features. I'm trying to figure out which one is a ripoff of the other. Not really, but.
Yeah, I don't know.
We haven't used it either, but it's visibly growing as a platform, so I was curious.
Well, I'm dying to hear something more about what sort of experiences people have had with live, either as a participant or as a host. What works and what doesn't host, and also if you want to have any sort of clarification or questions about more about what we were talking about here, that would be really great. I found that the feedback that we've had has been really good part of the process. But I mean, maybe we take a break now for 5 minutes and get a cup of tea.
Yeah, I think we'll take a 5-minute break, glass of water, and a stretch of the legs. Been sitting down for over an hour, and then we'll come back with a Q&A session for the rest of the afternoon.
Great.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Are we offline?
We're still online. But you can mute and stop your camera. We can have like a blender as well. It's just in case anyone wants to stretch.
I ask you guys a question that I didn't necessarily want to go out online.
After 6.
I'm actually, if I type it in the chat, will the online people be able to see it?
Send me an email.
Send you an email. Okay. That's going to be interesting because I'm using my phone as my camera and everything else as well. Let's see.
James, can I ask a question? To use Zoom breakout rooms, do you have to buy the Pro package and an add-on?
I'm not actually. I know that Zoom breakout rooms exist for meetings only. I can't quite remember if it's something that's specific to the package that we have, because we've had a paid package for so long that I can't quite remember what's in the free version now. I think that it's a case of just, for us it was checking a button, but I don't know if it was an actual bolt-on.
Because it's not very clear. They talk about rooms, but that seems to be something different from breakout rooms, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we don't tend to use rooms to add rooms on, but we can use breakout rooms within one session room. The Zoom rooms themselves under one single account can be a bit, it becomes quite quickly a thing that will become difficult to manage. We tend to put multiple hosts instead of rooms that way under one umbrella account, so that they can be sub-managed to have separate rooms. We find that a simpler way of delivering that.
Okay, okay. Because this is on behalf of a charity. I mean, we have no money, so I don't want to be spending lots of
Yeah,
money.
absolutely, yeah.
But what we want is, it's for English as an additional language, and we've got about 30 people, and it just means that lots of people have to wait a long time to get a say. So that's why we were thinking we might go pro and have the breakout rooms. But in my having looked so far, I just can't make up my mind if the pro lets you do that. But it does need more hosts. So if we had multiple hosts, we could break it up that way.
You would be able to break up by different sessions. I'm going to double check our breakout rooms for you just to check. Always mucking about the back end.
I'm really rude talking to you without putting my video on, but my God.
It's okay. You should just be able to go into your in-meeting advanced settings to allow breakout rooms to happen within the meeting itself.
So if I go for a pro, that should cover me for that.
Yep, yep. One thing to advise you on with that, just so that you're aware in advance, is that the breakout rooms functionality within Zoom itself wouldn't be possible within this setting. It's only possible within meetings as opposed to webinars.
Okay, I think that's okay for us though. So so technically a webinar is if you are, well, what is a webinar?
A meeting is something that's technically kind of private and will tend to be limited in its size and won't be broadcast, whereas a webinar is something that you can have a panel as well as an audience, and you can broadcast out to the wider world.
Okay, great. No, we would only be doing meetings because we need it to be secure and just our group. Yeah.
A bit more contained.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. I've spent a wee while this afternoon trying to get the answer to those questions, and you've given me in 2 minutes. Thank you.
Glad to help.
Okay.
Well, I hope everybody used their break. I put baked potatoes in the oven, so my tea is progressing. I think that's one of the things that's really nice about working from home. You've got all the facilities available to anyway. Yeah, so we talked about going live and live events, and I hope that it was helpful for you. I can't help feeling that maybe we didn't quite capture the excitement that can be associated with some of the live events and with the way in which the technology can be used. I mean, it does. I think it is really some of the things that I've seen nice. The Speyside wildlife early morning bird song. It's just so simple and such a sort of nice little thing to do, and I think it kind of affects people's quality of life. And there's a lot of that kind of goes on around the place, and so I don't know. It would be interesting to hear whether you guys. I mean, you're here, so you must have some interest in live events and stuff like that. But it'd be interesting to hear about what do you feel works or doesn't work, or yeah, Mary. You need to unmute yourself, though. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Thank you. Unbeknown to us, we had an event on Armistice Day at the end of the war centenary, and we had children who'd taken part 4 years earlier when we opened an exhibition, reading out passages from a publication we did of a soldier's letters from the front. And they were very special letters because he tried to migrate to Canada and had a very hard time out there. And but he wrote beautifully in English, not in Gaelic, in English. And the children read the letters out, they played instruments, they made music. And some of the family of the original letter writer were there. His nephew had just died, so it was a kind of tribute to him as well. And the hall was absolutely packed out. We're a population of 1,600. So to have so many people there in the hall was quite extraordinary. And it was a very, very popular event. Unbeknown to us, somebody at the back, Katrina McCouche, was live streaming the whole event. And we got so much feedback afterwards. She put it on Facebook, and we were so astonished by the numbers of comments we had. So that's just one occasion when someone like me, who's not very technical, is able to recognize the power of, she just did it on her phone, standing at the back of the hall. And the actual quality was remarkable. So that's just one offering.
Oh, thanks, Mary. It was, presumably you can go back and look at that now. Do Facebook still have it somewhere?
I don't know. I don't know. It might still be there.
Yeah, it might well be.
On our Facebook page.
Cool. That's great. That's great to it's great to hear about that. And it's kind of like the initiative of somebody stood at the back is great as well. It kind of suggests it's something we could be doing a lot more of. So
I think DJ Johnson Smith, you were looking to
add
something.
Hi there. Yeah, I work for the Coburn Association in Edinburgh. We're a small civic trust charity, and like everybody else, we've adjusted quite dramatically over the last 3 months to this disruptive digital technology. But one of the things we've been doing, we've been using Zoom technology, and I had some lovely feedback last week in line with what you're talking about from one gentleman who said he wasn't convinced that he would enjoy these sort of meetings. He liked to be in the room with everyone, but for the first time, he wasn't looking at the backs of everybody's head, and he felt able to contribute. And that was something that resonated a lot, because it's much more democratic for many people if they don't feel that they're able to get their voice heard. If they're sitting at the back of the room, you're no longer at the back of the room when you join and we can see everybody's faces in this way, and you can participate in the conversation in a way that you perhaps aren't able to do in the real world sometimes. So it was a very interesting bit of feedback from one of our meetings last week.
That's fascinating. Yeah, and do you use this for conference for like having meetings and sort of process?
Yeah, we've just started. One of the things we do, we organise a civic forum for organisations across Edinburgh to come together to talk about local civic issues, wherever that may be, access to park or so on. So that, but they've always been real world meetings. Now we're obviously doing it this way, but we also organise Edinburgh's Doors Open Days. So the reason I've been participating in so far is as we take Doors Open Day digital this year for the first time in its history. There's going to be a lot of crossover, and today's session for me is important because I really wanted to understand how we move something like Zoom onto Facebook. So very useful in that way.
Oh, that's fascinating, because I mean we had some along from Doors Open last week, and so we're likely, hope we are kind of like involved in that whole process. So it would be interesting to chat
Well,
more
I'm
with you about what we
literally
have.
just before this, I'm off, and I know that some of the attendees were at the meeting as well. I've just come from just before this started from a 2-hour meeting with the Scottish Civic Trust as we discussed the National Doors Open Day. So there's a massive shift for this. Doors Open Day in Scotland has been going on for 30 years. And a lot of people are struggling with the shift. Some are embracing the shift. Lots of little venues who wouldn't normally use technology. I mean, I know of a church in Edinburgh who the minister is now using her phone to broadcast live via Facebook. So we're seeing this amazing forced embracing of digital technologies, and we're going to try in September across the country to try and embrace it a little bit more.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Well done. Super, super, super. Hey, Elsa.
Hi. Can I just ask a question of Ian? When I was watching your bit, Ian, I just wanted to be sure that I'd understood you right when you were talking about OBS. Were you saying that it would allow you to do live commentary over pre-recorded materials? Is that the gist of what you were saying? Yeah.
Yeah, you can combine video and audio, so yes, it would be possible to.
So you could have something, I don't know, that you'd put together in advance, and then you could talk over it during a live thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, you can have OBS actually is good for doing recordings as well. You know, so if you've got different sorts of media that you want to kind of bring together and to make a recording of, then like you doing screen capture, for example, of videos and things, OBS is great. It's great for that, and it's great for the live thing, so you can put different things together.
So could you use it to do what we were talking about the other day when you were saying, and people I know have already done it that are here, just, you know, a stream of photographs that you could then put commentary over the top of. Could you do that on OBS?
Yeah, absolutely.
To make a video? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I think so. Catherine, do you think so? Yeah, I think you definitely could. I'm not sure it's the simplest solution.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you wanted to just put a voiceover that's been recorded or something over video that's already been recorded, is that correct?
No,
No? Okay.
I'm talking about making a video by using photographs.
Yes.
I know, I've forgotten who it was that's been talking about that. Shona?
Yep.
And recording the commentary.
And then recording the commentary.
Yeah.
Sort of over the top, but probably having to record the commentary from different people at different times.
Yeah.
And then put it all together.
I mean, I would probably do something that's more of a video making process as opposed to OBS, just because you have more options to edit as well. So you can certainly, I mean, there's lots of options for video editing, and it depends on what you're using, because you might, if you have an Apple product, you might have iMovie, or there's some free ones. I use Premiere because I use Adobe. But things that you can do video and have it appear, or do photos, but have it in a video, and then you record yourself at a separate time or record other people at separate times and add those in where you want to do it. So you can do it in OBS, but it'd be the really roundabout way to do that. But yeah, you can do it through another kind of video editing software.
Is there a particular one that you would suggest that's free? There's something on my computer, Microsoft something. Would that be just as good as anything else?
Yes, I'm not sure what comes standard anymore in Windows, because they used to have Windows Media Player, and that was great, and then they took it away. I'm just trying to think. Oh, sorry, that's my dog.
I was going to say that I've been using iMovie for mine on the iPhone. That's what I've been using for most of mine, so it's dead simple.
Yeah.
The only other way to do it would be to get some editing software on. The only other way is maybe to do a slideshow on, you can create them on Facebook where you use, but you can't put the commentary on top. You'd have to download that and then separately and add audio to it. the iMovie would be the easiest way because it's already on the phone and it's just a matter of dropping in the photos, and then there is a bit where it says a microphone, you can add audio to it for a voiceover. That would be your easiest way.
Yeah, I mean, you could try Windows Movie Maker. I mean, I think we were wanting to have a full session on this sort of thing and to really go into it into some depth. There are some free alternatives to.
Well, you can use
Premiere.
on Windows, because there's no more Movie Maker. You can use your photos if you have Windows 10. You can use your Photos app, has it in there to be able to make photo stories with video and making it into a video. I haven't done that, but I know you still have the ability to do it. It's just less like other video software than Movie Maker was. So, but you can still do it.
If you've got reasonable connections, you could. Zoom would support this because there's a record button, so you can record a Zoom session, and particularly if people are spread out, and you can share a screen to show the photographs, and you can record the audio, and so you could kind of do it sort of semi-live like that, and then you'd have to kind of review it for the Blender is a free video editing thing, but it's a little bit hairy getting going on it, but it is professional quality, and it's free and lets you do a lot of stuff. But again, it's some more heavyweight. So I personally would go with you know, what Shona was saying, particularly if you've got a Mac, or with what Catherine was saying, or using Zoom. We've done
the only other option is to create a presentation slideshow. So if you're going into your kind of Microsoft Office presentation software, you can do it there, and they can create a video from that as well. And I think you can, in some places, you can, if you've got a microphone connected to your computer, you can do a voiceover for the presentation as well. But that's yeah, it's a more complicated way of doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're planning to do an evaluation of all the different video and audio options, and come back to you with some workflows, maybe, you know, in a couple of weeks' time, and have a session on that sort of thing, taking on. Maybe we could do it with you, Shona, because you seem to be up on this sort of thing. Maybe we could do a job. You
can help
if
I don't mind helping out if you need it. Yeah.
We need you.
But also with this, you can look into what teachers are using, because they are doing this. They are making slideshows and making commentary over it. So that is another possibility.
Yeah. Okay. Super. Have you got any more people lined up, James? Or?
No, I saw Shona's hand. I saw a hand, but then I saw it was Shona. I was like, no. Katrina.
Hi. Just a quick question about how to create a seminar in Zoom. Does Zoom have that capacity to create, like, to have people separate into groups?
Not within the seminars themselves. You'd have to. The seminars just tend to be one big bulk room, so to speak. You wouldn't be able to split them down within seminars. Within meetings, yes, but not within seminars. And capacity-wise, I think the standard accounts are 100, but then you can bolt on capacities onto that scale from 3, 5, and then 1,000. The great thing with that, bearing in mind, is that they're month to month. They roll over. So when if you only need it for a month, you just take that cap back off. So you're not stuck into like a 12-month contract to have that expense throughout the year. You can just do it on an ad hoc basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed yesterday, I went to something and they had something called a Mural, the Mural app, where people can in real time add like little sticky notes. I thought that was quite interesting. That kind of a app where in real time people can talk about like strategic planning, especially with COVID. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's sort of interesting. There's sort of lots of different interactive options. So I think Zoom kind of gives you the straightforward meeting experience, doesn't it? But it doesn't really play up to all the interactivity that would be possible. Skota, do you want to tell us a little bit about the live event we did in your end of the works? Because I thought that went really, really well.
That went quite well, but that was more schooly. I was just watching like everyone else. But then for everyone who didn't see it, because I don't think there was most of it, they combined together. We did the live talk of the area from Iceland, and then St. Andrews added on video, and then we had commentary from other places as well. So it's doable, and it's quite, yeah, you guys made it look really easy. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. But I wanted to point out something else completely different. That's the Faroe Island stuff that I sent you all in. Because we've been talking about live streaming, and we've been talking about interactions, and we've been talking about virtual shows and another seminar. If you haven't checked it out, in the Faroe Islands, you can actually, once a week, you can remote control a live person walking through specific areas while they are talking, and they're giving commentary of different places. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a lot of fun, a lot of jumping around because you can make the person jump as well. But it is taking live streaming and virtual tours to another level, pretty much.
So you can actually control some. So I can log in at some time and you know, tell somebody to turn left, turn right, and tell me what.
There is a queue when you get to control the person just only for 1 minute, because you know they don't want you to take all the control. And they have, there's rules in place. You cannot make them jump over off a cliff, of course. But they've been doing helicopter rides and bunch of different stuff. So it's lots of fun, completely different. And I honestly don't understand why not more people are doing this. So it's great. I can link to it just in the Facebook group somewhere, because it is fun to check out.
The more the links, the better in there. It would be great to have a lot of links. You know, you could either put them in the Facebook group or send them to myself or James or Catherine. It would be good to get examples that we can put in there with that. I don't know. I mean, last week there was some discussion about monetization, and it does seem to me that the sort of live streaming side of things is an area where there's quite a lot of potential for monetization. I mean, I think that, like, you know, in terms of we were talking about virtual tours, you know, right at the beginning, and putting up 360 images and things like that. But I think there has to be potential of people being prepared to pay for a virtual tour where they've got like an expert guiding them and showing them around, you know, and sort of potential for doing bookings as well, and possibly. I was saying to Catherine that you said the beer people do it as well, but there's some whiskey people who you know, do virtual tastings. They will send in the post miniature bottles of whiskey, and you know, charge for that. And with the sale comes a virtual, you know, somebody will then talk through, you know, how do you smell a whiskey? Should you put water in it or shouldn't you put water in it? What's the life cycle? What are the different types of whiskies, and you know, all of that sort of stuff, and that seems to be quite close to the sort of technologies we're talking about and working about here. So there's sort of some potential for monetization, commercialization.
Yeah, and isn't Facebook open up for you? I think that you can charge for a live event now. At least they were talking about doing it, so you can just pretty much have it closed and charge for it.
The same applies to Eventbrite as well. If Eventbrite fronts Zoom panels, they can be charged that way and monetized. And part of what XpoNorth does through XpoNorth Heritage is we provide support for ideas and dialogue for this. And luckily today we have our sector specialist Nicola with us. Nicola, I don't know if you have anything that you want to put in as a bit of advice around monetization that way.
My thoughts around if you're live streaming is it kind of depends what the aim of your live stream is, because if you put up a paywall, you will lose the larger audience, because in general, if you put it up, you could get hundreds of hits or thousands, depending on where you go. You can reach a really, really wide audience. And if you put up a paywall, there are some people who just won't pay, so that falls right down. So it depends whether you're doing it to specifically drive income. And one of the things that we found can often work best is a sort of pay what you can model, where you always give people the option, because there are a lot of people out there that want to support your organisation, that want to give you some money, but it gives those a chance that are maybe just wanting to tune in as well and that aren't too sure about paying, so that you could still be fundraising and looking at ways to generate some kind of income, while also not perhaps putting up a barrier to some attendance as well. So it just depends on the model of the event, but there are different sort of patronage models and things that we can go through as well, and we can perhaps share on the Facebook page some of those patronage and subscription models as well that you could look at, where you could be having some of your content free, but then having other bits that are paid for members or for friends of your organisation in some way. Yeah.
So thanks a lot. Go, Elsa, go.
Hi, I was just searching on my phone. A wee while ago, I did an online thing with a friend of mine who has a croft. I also work for the Scottish Crofting Federation, and it was about forest bathing. It was brilliant what he did. It was very simple. But I was talking to them about, they used Zoom and they did their invitations through Zoom, and I haven't managed to look at it all. But I mean, the Eventbrite stuff is fine, but I honestly have had, I don't know about other people, but I've had so many emails for each of these sessions. I think I've had like 5 different emails from Eventbrite and from XpoNorth, and it's just sort of gone on, and it's like, that's some weeks, some of the sessions I've struggled to get into because I've clicked on the wrong blooming email and then I can't find the links and whatever. But
I do that every week.
Anyway, you know, all I got was just one email, but it is a Zoom, somehow it's through Zoom, and it gives you, you know, they've obviously been able to go in and customize it somehow. You know, thank you for registering, blah, blah, blah. Please submit any questions to, and their email address, the date, the time, join from, the password, you know, and just, you know, it just seems to be another option to do something maybe more simple. Obviously, your stuff through XpoNorth, you know, you've got lots of different things. I can understand why you would do it through Eventbrite, but for a one-off thing, maybe that is another option. But as I say, I haven't had time to look to see how to do it. They've got just the simple paid pro Zoom like you do, because I asked.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I did think that I thought, so sorry for not introducing you at the beginning, Nicola. I was remiss there, and it's great to have you here sharing those ideas. It was so clear, I thought, and I really agree. I'm just wondering, you know, how many people actually do have like a PayPal account that people could make donations to? Is that something that is there? So then it's not, and that is that on your online? Can people access it from your website or from Facebook or something? Because of yeah.
Can I ask then a question that would be to Nicola? If you're finding that the pay what you can model works best, how are people broadcasting? Are they broadcasting it during it? So if we've got a Zoom webinar on, do we just send the link out at the beginning, middle, and end, or is it? Would you recommend more doing it before the event or after the event? How would you see that working?
I would certainly have it out beforehand as well, so people are aware. But yes, have it push it, have it going in the chat when things are while the event's running, so that people can see it. Because a lot of people are following the chat and things that are going on as well. And then definitely follow up with your audience afterwards and send it to them as well. But yeah, all three, before, during, and after.
And is PayPal the most used? So that people, I mean, we have, as a charity, we have a donate button that's PayPal. But I wondered, I mean, I know there's lots of new platforms emerging. Some are very specific to musicians, for example, or to artists. But I presume there's probably a platform out there that I haven't heard of that's peculiar to the heritage sector, maybe.
I don't know. I'm thinking of some of the museums that I work with. They're mostly using PayPal,
right?
As well, and it seems to be because a lot of audience members are quite familiar with PayPal and sort of trust it now. There are lots of other new models coming up, and again, I'll share the document in the Facebook group afterwards. But I think PayPal is one. Just Giving's another one I see people using more and more now. But yeah, those kind of big names, because people do trust that their money's secure and things. So.
Thank you.
I can just add to the Just Giving thing really quick as well, because other people can, once you register your charity with Just Giving, other people can make fundraising pages, and so that money would automatically go to your company as well. So it's really nice. So if you have some people who really want to help out, they can create a fundraising page to help you out.
Okay, that's great. That's super. I mean,
can I ask another question just about what we're doing right now? Are there any pitfalls to broadcasting live on Facebook from Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
Only because it's happened today. So for anyone who's watching on Facebook, either live or a recording of this, the reason why the first couple of minutes aren't there, Ian, as well, to answer you from before, is that sometimes you can just have a little bit of connectivity problems with accounts. So you'll find that it hangs, and then you will have to do things like sign out and then sign back in. When you're trying to do other things at the same time, your brain has to be in two places at once. So there's always those little things that can put timings off a little bit. So that's one, the kind of comms going between two. But that's something that would potentially happen with any, network to network communication. But it's certainly something to watch out for because it's very fresh in my head.
Sounds like a good recover there, though.
Oh, but luckily
losing
no one...
it for 2 minutes is not.
Yeah, luckily no one noticed, and I just had to admit that there. And secondly, as well, just that it's another audience to want to take into the conversation. If you're having because we just had a wee check there, but I was going to read this out. But if you have people who are interacting with Facebook as well as within panels as workshop panelists, just to make sure that they feel engaged, because they're offering insight and discussion to it. So just making sure that it's not like a sort of secondary bounce, that there is still value in tuning in that way as well. Thirdly, that is more one for IP, as long as you're happy with that. But like when content goes on to Facebook, there's licensing that it will contain within that app framework, and won't necessarily need to. You won't be able to necessarily export back out as readily as you could just with Zoom recording natively.
Would you? That was something. Zoom AGM a week ago, and I found my learning from it was I needed more people monitoring the questions in particular, because I was being asked to collate questions to deliver to the board, the trustees, and people were asking me questions, and I was trying to let people into the room at the same time. So the multiple host thing seems to be
many hats.
I mean, I think that it's a good idea to have somebody on the Facebook stream to allow comments on the Facebook stream, to have somebody there looking at them and then feeding them into these conferences. We haven't really done that, and to be honest, I think that it's just because we're a bit stretched, putting together the series that we put together, doing 2 a week over a 4-week period and pulling it together. So I think that if we had like a bit more, everybody wants more time always, but if we had a bit more time, that we would maybe pay a bit more attention to those sort of things, because the Facebook audience can be, you can get some really good input and questions from it, and we do other ones. We do this sort of Heritage at Home series, and just for a plug, there's one Friday at 2 o'clock, and it's about medieval St Andrews, and you'd be all welcome to come along to that. But that is almost entirely Facebook. So we have the panel of speakers in Zoom, but then and we make some effort to invite people to come and join the panel. We don't. It's not kind of closed, but it's not sort of advertised or like this is. But then we advertise quite vigorously on Facebook, and so we get people watching the streams. And there, the interactions are very much people asking questions, people asking text questions, feeding that into the panel and coming back, and it does seem to work rather well. That's good.
I think maybe just sorry.
After you.
I was just going to ask if you could maybe explain a wee bit more about, I don't know, David, you know David Heaney, Alan, your friend in Liverpool. Yeah, he's really involved. They invigorated, I don't know what the word is. The local radio in Liverpool wasn't happening until COVID, and a wee group of people have brought it back online through actually another radio station. So they're just broadcasting once a day. And they did on Sunday last, they did a live streaming sort of Zoom chat about, you know, are people ready for tourists to come back to Liverpool? It was really interesting. It was really good what they did. But I think I watched it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, is that a thing?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I think that Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch also is a thing. Particularly for, and we're interested in Twitch, but particularly for playing games, and you know, so exploring reconstructions would be an example. And YouTube, yeah, YouTube Live, it's a big thing, you know, and you know, I don't know, we all want to be millionaires, but if you go viral, you can really go viral on YouTube. Facebook is more sort of peer units and so on, but YouTube can really take off, and so it's a channel that's well worthwhile having a footprint in, and doing live stuff in. And we haven't really talked. There's room for talking about so much. I mean, when we were pulling this together, thought, oh, we're going to have a 45-minute on live, and then we thought, well, actually, we could have like 4 or 5 sessions on this topic, really easily. Maybe we should, but yeah, there's so much to talk about. But one of the things is relaying, so that we do this in Zoom, and then it finds its way sort of magically to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and all of these places. But then, you know, the social media thing, it can be never ending. So you kind of have to start somewhere and do something well, I think. And then push out from that, rather than be sort of overwhelmed by the possibilities that are out there. You know, so I think I would say if you're wanting to do live stuff, think about what you've done that is live or is close to live, and think about just what would be the next step, because this is supposed to have been about, well, this is all of the stuff that you can do, right? But nobody would expect anybody to do all of the stuff. So the question is, okay, so what's my next step? What can I like achieve out of all this? And you know, being a host, doing a live thing with a phone, or connecting Zoom to Facebook. You know, everybody must have a sort of the next thing that they could do in this domain. I think that'd be really worth thinking about. I know it's something that I think about, you know, we've got to get the relay stuff going, because it would be nice to have things on YouTube. I think that that's one of the things that I'm not talking about for this series necessarily. I'm just talking about from my own perspective, sort of Open Virtual Worlds, University of St Andrews, the sort of stuff that we're doing. That's the kind of next step, I think, for what we're trying to do. But I mean, everybody will have one.
I think what attracts me to YouTube, Alan, is, I don't think particularly of my own father. You know, he obviously, well, that's not obvious at all, he doesn't do Facebook. My parents don't do Facebook, and I know a lot of actually just friends my age as well who just don't want to do Facebook, and I have to say I find it quite irritating. So they don't want you to send them a Facebook link to anything, but a YouTube link to a video, you know, is much more accessible to them. So that's, I think, and you know, I suppose bearing in mind that sometimes with heritage, you know, an audience can be an older, or I don't know, particularly with community heritage, you know, certainly I know, having worked for Isle Martin for a year now, you know, I just know that out within the community of Ullapool, there are hundreds of stories about the island that we're missing, that we're not capturing, you know, and if you tried to do all that on Facebook, you would, you know, that wouldn't work, but maybe through YouTube, you know, people could then share videos through YouTube. That's why it interests me. So I fully plan to set up a YouTube channel for Isle Martin. I just need another in my life.
Well, maybe when we do the session on media, we could focus that around YouTube and could go into that into a lot more detail, because I think you're right. YouTube is a great platform, and it is more open than Facebook.
Something I did this year, just with a completely different hat on, I also run an organisation called New Music Scotland, and we host the Scottish Awards for New Music, which were meant to be on the 14th of April at the V&A in Dundee, and clearly that couldn't happen anymore. So we thought about whether we did a live event, but how we could do all that and sort of involve lots of different people. It seemed like it was getting too difficult because you can't have lots of people in the same room. So we decided to record something and put it together. We sent envelopes to people to open in their house to announce the awards, and we had a presenter to do it, and we had people do live performances and music together. But then we did it as a live event on YouTube Premiere, and just really had discussion in the chat, so everybody still felt there was live. It went out at 7:30 p.m. Everybody could tune in. It lasted 45 minutes, and then we had a wee sort of live Zoom afterwards for the winners and everybody to come in and still sort of celebrate. And that worked really well. We had a bigger audience watching than we would ever have fitted in the V&A in Dundee, and it's still growing now, so it goes viral and people trusted the audience. So it was a great platform to use.
Nicola, when you did your live event, you did the part that you output in Zoom and then you output it to YouTube, or you did everything on YouTube?
No, we just did the recorded bit on YouTube. Actually, after that, we invited people to the Zoom, and that went through our Facebook as well, so that people could watch it there.
That's not what I meant. I meant, you remember you said you had people do performances and do opening of envelopes and so on. That bit, how did you coordinate that bit? What software did you use for that before you fed it to YouTube?
So it was just through iMovie. It was just all edited together. So everybody sent me clips from their phones, or some people had better tech at home, but most people were just using their phones to do it. And did their wee bits, and then we just all spliced it all together.
Thank you.
That sounds great. And I'm presuming it was the 14th of March, you said?
14th April.
Oh, 14th of April, right. But you wouldn't have had much time to do the context switch from physical to virtual.
Yeah, we sort of, as everything shut down, and then just kind of on the 23rd went, right, we decided to just do it. We didn't want to, because you can't really postpone an award ceremony for a year, or it's out of date. So we decided to go ahead and just do what we could, and we used the same people that were meant to be performing live. We just said, can you perform in your living room now, or in your garden, or wherever you can? And I ordered gold envelopes from Amazon and posted them all out to everybody and asked them to just do little videos, and everybody was really happy and got involved. So it was a lot of editing. That was really the hardest work. But yeah, we just had to respond on our feet.
I think that's one of the things that's been positive is the number of artists and so on who've been prepared to like sit in their living room and record a song and post it, or even do it live. I've been enjoying Christy Moore's. He's doing like 2 or 3 songs a week at the moment. It's quite funny because he said, "Oh, you know, I don't know whether anybody's interested in this, but here's a couple of songs." And then the next week said, and 250,000 people watched them. I can't really understand what that sort of number means.
Musicians are doing great work on Instagram live as well, just going live with concerts in the evening too. And some of them are charging in different platforms, and some are just playing for the enjoyment of it, and they're getting thousands of people tuning in, more than they would ever have listened to them probably if they'd gone to play in the Glass Cafe or somewhere. So.
Yeah, it's great. It's great like
that. I think maybe ask as well, like, where's everyone tuning in from? This is Kay, you were wanting to ask.
No, I was just going to make the comment that I actually tuned into a couple of the Versus battles on Instagram, and those were pretty cool as well. They did Instagram, they did Facebook, they did multiple platforms at once. And I think they have their own software that feeds out to all those different things. But the numbers were huge.
Yeah. So that's great. And I suppose that you know, any event can be live, couldn't it? So there's quite a lot of potential for creativity. I mean, last week I think we were talking about how you need to ask the audience questions and kind of like sort of do DJ type things, and also about, or was it the week before, and also about jigsaws and things like that. But I'm sort of wondering, I mean, I suppose you could do quizzes, there's award ceremonies, but can you do online competitions? Is that how would that all work?
Well, there's been plenty of places that have been doing like pub quizzes, and that's still been going on. That's been going on through our university. And that hasn't stopped. So, and I don't know how that's facilitated. I haven't joined it, but
I've noticed that in my school they use something called Kahoot, Kahoot, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Kahoot. Yeah,
that's a gaming platform for multiple people.
Yeah,
to be on. Yep.
Can I ask then a question about what we're doing tonight? Something I have noticed about we don't. Yeah, XpoNorth, these events, you don't use the chat facility. Is there a reason for that, or is there a specific?
There isn't a chat facility within a webinar itself within Zoom. So if you're in a meeting room, you can, but unfortunately, because it's a broadcast out one, it doesn't have that functionality.
Answer that question, thank you.
Nobody's mentioned Animal Crossing. But I mean I think that's an example of social media, which is, and it is live. You meet up with your pals at different places in this game, and you chat, and daughter-in-law, she plays Animal Crossing, but it's not really playing it. She just goes there to chat with her pals.
Well, it's any kind of gaming platform that has the live functionality where you can play, you know, across PlayStation, and you know, Xbox has that as well. But Animal Crossing, it just happened to have been released right when lockdown happened. And it was very cathartic for a lot of people for a while.
Yeah. That was cool. So, I mean, I feel like we're kind of coming towards the end of our session for this week. I don't know how you'll feel the same way. You've got burst into.
Yeah.
What are we doing next week? Is it next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday is virtual reality.
I couldn't remember, it was because on the Tuesday we've got virtual reality, and then we've got kind of Wikipedia and Creative Commons on the Thursday, and I've had the two kind of, which is going to. So the virtual reality one should be very, very exciting and very, very interesting topic. I think we will look at the different platforms that are available and how they might play out post pandemic, or whilst the pandemic is still going on, and also look at different examples of content that can be used in a virtual reality setting. I mean, obviously there's the 360 media and photospheres that we've touched on so far. So we'll look at how that can be fitted into a virtual reality context. But there's also other things like using virtual, like making digital models and digital reconstructions. And I mean, again, that's a topic that you could easily have, you know, a lifetime of sessions on. But I think that it's something that we can certainly touch on and provide a roadmap for people who are interested in going down that way, or would like to, you know, make something that represented the local piece of heritage, make something that, you know, looked like in the past, or maybe taking a, you know, a vase and being able to paint it. Mika has done a lot of work in that direction, because I think, Mika, you made a big picture stone brought back to colour.
Okay. Sorry, I missed what you were saying because my dog started barking.
Oh.
So I had to stop her.
Okay.
But what did you say?
I was just saying that next week the next session on Tuesday is going to be on virtual reality.
Oh,
and one of the things that's interesting about that is that you can use it to restore things to the way in which they were in the past. And then it just occurred to me that was something you've done quite a lot of work on.
Oh yeah, I can talk about that next week if you would like.
Okay.
Yeah. I can bring it
up. Little taste now. Huh?
Yeah.
Great. So that's yeah. It's your encouragement to come along next week. Oh. Okay, good.
It'll be Tuesday the 16th next week.
Tuesday the 16th at 4 p.m. Virtual reality, and it will be great to. Well, but it would also be good to hear if you have any adventures in the live setting between now and then. Am I allowed to set homework, James?
It's the weekend, so yes, because there's 4 days in the middle. If it was on Tuesday and it was only Wednesday left to get to Thursday, I'd maybe go. But got there's 4 days.
Oh, that's it then. It would be great to hear if you have any adventures in the live thing, even if it's just like sort of experimental stuff. Try to do something that kind of relates to what we've all been talking about.
I have this idea, Alan, that I could do something live from the boat to Isle Martin. I'm hoping to get over at some point soon. We haven't been recently, and we're not running the boat, obviously, but
that'd be really cool.
Yeah, so I might try.
Well, we could run a whole event around Isle Martin.
Yeah.
It'd be really good. It'd be good. And the museum you've got there is so great. It's a small sort of tin hut, and then you walk up the hill. There's this whole street, sort of overgrown street that nobody lives in. I went there on a sunny day, and you walk to the end of the street, and the view is just fantastic across. And so it's this island. Nobody lives on it, do they? Usually. But
no,
there are
we're
some.
talking about having a caretaker on the island. We were just actually at the point before lockdown of trying to make that happen this summer. But that is our aspiration, is to have a caretaker living on the island to facilitate.
But once a year it gets opened up, and you have like.
Oh no! I mean, it's open. It's open all summer. Alan. It's
right,
open all summer. We have a ferry that goes. Well, we don't at the moment, but usually in the summer we have a regular ferry that runs over, and people go over all the time.
Oh, cool.
So we're all missing that. The day you came was our open day, so when we say open day, it's not really, it's open other than that as well. But yeah, no, it's a great place.
Super.
Brilliant. And we also have a survey for everyone to fill out for today's session, which has been put onto the XpoNorth event Facebook page, as well as the XpoNorth website for this day's event as well. And there'll be one going out for next Tuesdays also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll put it on the Facebook group as well with the unit. And thank you for everyone who has been filling it out. So there have been some great responses. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. So,
okay.
On behalf of XpoNorth, thank you to everyone for joining us, and Alan and Catherine, thank you very much for putting all of this together for us. It's been five sessions of great content with more to come.
Thanks a lot. And I think it's made by the sort of inputs we're getting from Kay and Nicola and Micah and Mary.
Everyone.
And, well, everybody. Let's go through the whole list. Yeah, it's great. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday.